Welcome back to the Jackson Neill Music Podcast here on Wednesday, June 20th, 2018. First time back in over a month to this podcast. Also, the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast updated for the first time in over a month today as well. And something new. You guys all know it's available on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes, but now available on YouTube as well. So check it. The podcast is on any platform. I repeat, any platform you want to listen to. SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and now YouTube. So check it all out there. The Jackson Neill Music, the Jackson Neill Sports, and the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast, all available on those platforms. Without further ado, let's get right into it, where today I want to take a little travel back in time to a mixtape that I've always loved from an artist that I saw in concert last year. I always liked him, but I saw him in concert last year, and I completely fell in love with his music after seeing him live. And this is his mixtape, one of his best pieces of work, his best mixtape in my opinion. This is 1999 by Joey BadA. And the reason I'm talking about this mixtape, even though it was released 6 years ago, is that last Tuesday, so about a little over a week ago, it was released on streaming platforms for the first time. And if you don't know what that means, it's that it was on sites like DatPiff and other mixtape sites where you can get free music, but it wasn't on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, Google Play, any one of those platforms. Now, though, it is, and with that, it's gotten more attention because people are going back and listening to it. And I just kind of want to do a little bit of a revisit this album, or this mixtape rather, and really look at it for what it is, which was an incredible, just downright incredible showing of who Joey BadA as an artist is. And really what ended up happening was the lead single off of this was Waves, and it had this retro kind of feel, and it was this return of these Brooklyn kids in this pro-era movement. That's what their group is called. Chuck Strangers, Capital Steez, CJ Fly, all these, Kirk Knight, all these people, they really helped Joey BadA create this mixtape. And it had this jazzy retro feel, thinking back to some of the old New York legends, and they kind of revamped it and did it their way. And a song like Waves is a song where it became very popular on it. J. Cole even used that beat in Everybody Dies a couple of years back, right before 2016 Forest Hills Drive came out. And it was just that was an awesome song to kind of show what this album and mixtape really was this piece of work from these kids who are from Brooklyn, and they're doing it their way, while still recognizing where they come from, recognizing the history of the city that they're born in, and representing that, and paying homage to that, but still taking it a step forward. And it really sounds like they took right off. Joey BadA really took right off where a lot of these legendary New York rhymers left off. Because there was this whole jazzy movement, and you think, the big group you think about that is A Tribe Called Quest, coming from New York and having that whole jazz saxophone kind of sonic sound in the background. And with this mixtape, Joey BadA showed that you don't have to be old in order to make music that seems to be timeless and that seems to fit into any kind of generation. Because nowadays, we're seeing more younger rappers, I feel like, blow up than ever before. With the advent of the internet, and especially SoundCloud, and all these other ways to share music, whether it's on clips on Instagram and Twitter, or anything else, that people seem to be able to blow up like this. Like, at a snap of a finger, you can become big. And what that's brought is a lot of talented artists to the forefront at a very young age. And a lot of people getting recognition in just their teen years. I mean, whether you like it or not, Lil Pump broke onto the scene at 16 years old. XXXTentacion, rest in peace, he broke onto the scene at 18, 19. These are kids that are making some of the biggest hip-hop music in the world on the internet, and they're being discovered before they're 20 years old, sometimes before they're even 19 or 18. Just as basically kids. And Joey BadA was another one of these kids, just in his teen years, making 1999 and offering up as one of his first pieces of work, musical work to the world. And what he's able to do with this is show that, a lot of times we look at these younger generation, they kind of do it their own way. I mean, nobody really sounds like Lil Pump, and it's just this kind of thing where old people don't understand. It's just kind of a new kids thing. And it was some very similar way for XXXTentacion as well, where he made music that was, that spoke a lot to the younger generation, but didn't, really wasn't meant for the older generation. You see that with a lot of new artists in any genre of music. But what was so incredible about 1999 with Joey BadA was it was this mixtape made by this teenager from Brooklyn. And it was cool. This cool artwork of these kids skateboarding. His name's Joey BadA with dollar signs. Like, that's speaking to the younger generation. That's cool. The younger kids like it. But also, if you're a real hip-hop head, if you're a real lyricist, guy who likes the lyrical abilities, you listen to this kid and you're expecting Joey BadA, like, oh, what is he? He's another one of these kind of like one-and-done kind of guys. And you listen to his lyrics, you listen to what he has to say, and you listen to the instrumentation on this album, on this mixtape, and you say, wow, this kid really has it. That it's like when these teenagers were breaking onto the scene back in New York in the 90s, where, they were young, but they had something to say. And that's where they broke big. It wasn't just another young kid who made a turn-up club anthem. It was these people who had old souls, who had actual messages to display, to share with the world, ideas to share, new ways to present information while still staying true to the roots of the genre. And Joey BadA did that. And you hadn't seen that for, it seemed like, forever. And New York is a place where, even with A$AP Mob being really right now at the top of New York hip-hop, and they really don't even sound like the city, it's a city that really likes, that's where boom bap started. That's where Nas, Biggie Smalls, A Tribe Called Quest, Grandmaster Flash, people that really started the genre, really pushed it forward, really had a lot to say, really were lyrical, really, put a lot onto each and every track. That's where they all came from. And I think what 1999 shows is, with its obvious reference to the past, the year 1999, and just its timeless beats in the back that it's based around, it showed you don't have to be old to make great music, to make timeless music. And I think it established Joey BadA as a lyricist, as one of the best lyricists of this current generation, one of the best songwriters in hip-hop currently, and really from an underrated standpoint, because this mixtape is loved by many, but I think not enough. And I think now that it's available on streaming platforms, it's an excellent time where if you haven't heard this or only heard bits and parts or only listened to it maybe once when it came out, to go back and listen to it. Because even years ago, we know Joey BadA is All-American Badass nowadays, with that politically charged album there, he has a lot to say, and he delivers it awesomely. But even back then, he had a lot to say too. And he delivered it in a way only he could. So, 1999 is one of my favorite mixtapes of all time. I'm so glad it's on the streaming platforms. And Joey BadA really, really knocked it out of the park with this release, and it set the stage for what has become an awesome career, and I can't wait to see any other step he takes, because him and the entire pro era movement are definitely a group that I support. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the Jackson Neill Music Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can catch this as well as the Jackson Neill Sports Podcast 3 to 4 times a week right here on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, and now YouTube. So check all of those out in those places. Also, the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill show, the radio show, that's going to be airing on Tuesdays, as it always does, but now from 10 to 12 a.m. on 107.9 FM, WRML in Southern New York.